Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manas, and I am a co-founder of a company called Nagarro. Nagarro is 18,000 people in about 30 countries, and I'm sure you use our software somewhere or the other in your daily lives. We are a digital product engineering company, but my topic today is about caring and building a digital human future. And you may wonder what this means. The emphasis is more on the human than on the digital. And I will talk about this in two parts. I will talk at the level of society and humanity. And then we will drop down to a more tangible level that we can get our arms around, to our organizations, our offices, our factories, our supply chains. But let me start with the society level first. Let me propose a hypothesis that as technology becomes more and more powerful, perhaps even dangerously powerful, at some point we have to step in to humanize it, to tame it, to defang it, to draw out the venom. When weapons became so powerful that a single bomb could obliterate an entire city, then we had to step back and figure out ways to deal with it as societies. And I believe that the level of understanding, the level of analysis, the level of work that was required to deal with a society where you have bombs that can each obliterate a city was perhaps at least as complex as that required to invent the bomb in the first place. This Der Spiegel issue, the title is Autokampf, the war over the automobile. And it refers to this war in Berlin over the future of the automobile in our cities. And right here in Barcelona, there is a whole movement on these super blocks to make the city walkable once again, to make it breathable once again, to make it cyclable once again. And this is a revolution around the world. In New York, you have speed limits being reduced. You have a lot of investments in pedestrian and cycling infrastructure in Paris and London and Seoul and Mexico City. And again, another example of when humanity builds a technology which becomes so seductive, so attractive, and then we have to sort of humanize it. We have to reclaim our humanity. And it's almost as difficult, or maybe more difficult, to get the car out of our city centers as it was to get it into the city centers in the first place. A similar example, a third example, work from anywhere. Suddenly there was a COVID lockdown and we discovered that we had the capability, we had the technology, the tools to work from literally anywhere around the world. And then we discover that we have other needs. We have social needs, we have mental health needs. And now we're trying to figure out, how does this all work? And the last I heard, Amazon tried to call its people back like a few days ago, and then 14,000 of Amazon employees got on a Slack channel to push back because in this interim period, they have developed a social way of working that they don't want to give up. They have developed certain social behaviors they don't want to give up. Now, I'm going somewhere with this, right? The idea is that when we talk of technology, we tend to think about what it can do at the very local level, right? In the 1980s and 90s, a programmer called Alan Cooper, he created this concept of user personas. And we all know how to work with personas. When we build software, when we build devices, we think of user personas. But I think that only goes so far, because beyond the persona is the social behavior, is the society. And I'm an engineer, and I can tell you that I at least don't think that far. Even the UX is a big leap for us. And to go to the level of society is very, very difficult for us. So if you take social media, for example, right? I mean, so seductive, quite useful, nice experience, and all of us spend a lot of time on social media, maybe also very useful in our narrow social circles. My classmates from school, my college mates from college. But beyond that, the implications to society, when the US Congress is calling the social media leaders for hearings and inquisitions because something has broken, and the polarization of society has got to the point where there's the unprecedented storming of the US Capitol building in Washington, which you could not even imagine, because the amplification of the polarizations has got to a point where society is starting to break. And I don't know if you know this, but in China, they have made it compulsory that gaming sites, game sites, will only allow people under the age of 18 for 3 hours a week to play games. And that also they specify which hours: 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Friday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday, and 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday. And I must compliment the Chinese Communist Party for doing for a country what I couldn't do for my son. But it's really remarkable. And you can imagine what kind of forces have driven this big, strong dictate from the government. I think it's not just about what the kids are doing in the time that they are playing those games. It is what they are doing in the world outside. Maybe they're not going out to play. Maybe they're not interacting with their friends. Maybe they're spending too much time outside thinking of the games. Maybe they're carrying over the violence in the games to the real world. So the broader pattern, I think, is that when we are designing technologies, it's important that we understand the social impact. Actually, not just the social impact, the social behaviors that they are engendering. And the social physics is a critical part of these powerful technologies that we are now generating. All the technologies that you see here are extremely powerful and can change humanity in many ways, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to think of that. And I think today we have the technology to simulate that. We have the AI, we have the engines, we have all of that, but we don't have the mindset, I think, to think about what is the kind of world we want to live in and work backwards from there. And I think that's a change that we will have to make. And now, I mean, all of this was very good at a very high level, at an abstract level. I will try to bring it down to the context of an organization. And I'll talk about my own organization, because I think that we are the fastest growing services company in our space. And I think it's a lot to do with how we have harnessed some of this, right? So you may have seen caring, the title, and you may wonder, why is caring all in capital letters? These are our core values, and they spell out different core values, but the acronym is also caring. And the idea is that we want to be a humanistic place. Yeah? It's really important for us to be humanistic. And just to explain why, I think that we felt that in a world of giants, where there were so many giant companies in our space, we as a small startup, as an entrepreneurial, agile company, we wanted to preserve that, even as we scaled. And we thought, a great way to innovate is to innovate in how we come together, how we interact, how we ask for help, how we bounce ideas off each other, how we collaborate, right? So that became our theme. And we were very impressed by this guy called social physics, Alex Pentland. He talks a lot about how do you think of the social physics of an organization? How do you instrument it for data? How do you analyze what's going on, right? So that was a big contributor to our thinking about this. And we were also very impressed by Toyota in a different industry, in a different age. 30, 40 years ago, Toyota brought all these innovations of just-in-time, lean manufacturing, quality management, and all of that. But on top of all the tools they created, right, all the technologies, whether it's single-minute exchange of dies or whatever the technologies were, there was a layer of culture, a layer of how we work, right? And whether it be how we as Toyota, and I never worked at Toyota, but I read a lot about it, how you take challenges, how you do Kaizen or continuous improvement. So there was a whole theme around how you worked. So that was also for us a real inspiration. So we decided, right, let's build a culture that's agile and entrepreneurial and global. And we did a variety of things, and I'll just talk about a couple of them. So of course, organization design had to be different. Of course, the terminology we use is different. So, I'm not the CEO in a conventional sense. I have a different title as a custodian of entrepreneurship, for example. And when we acquire a company, the people who founded that company become co-founders also of Nagarro. So there are different things that we did at that level. But coming down to the technology, because we're all technology lovers here, I guess, we decided that we would create data democracy. So create a strong data layer and allow people to pull data and to push data to them and just sort of make all of that very, very democratized. Because all of us who work in large organizations, we sort of know that hoarding data, whether deliberately or whether just subliminally, subconsciously, is something we all do. So when you break that dynamic, when you make data available to everyone, that creates a totally different dynamic. And it's not just the data, it's the insights, right? A lot of us who are older in this audience will feel that a lot of what we do in our jobs is very basic. We are trying to help people with very basic insights, right? And the idea was that let's automate even those insights, yeah? And let's automate the nudges that we can give to each other so that we are able to align without hierarchy, right? So trying to build internal conversations that are, if you want to address someone senior in your organization or someone junior in your organization, is your tone the same, right? And mostly not, right? But how do you make it the same? So in our internal systems, for example, we took out designations. You can barely find the designation of people in the organization. In order to make it more casual, in our internal social media, we brought in topics like food recipes and this and that and chaotic stuff, right? Trying to create an environment that was more outspoken, more casual, more informal, more non-hierarchical. And all of this, we were basically trying to work out the social physics, yeah? Because in an industry like ours, where we work with airlines, we work with the car companies, we work with the telecom companies, we work with large cities, we work with hospitals, medical devices, all kinds of different ideas. How do you get people to collaborate? How do you get people to come together and piece together solutions? And the idea was that if you do the right social physics, that stuff will become easy. So I'll give you a small example of how you model, let's say, something even as intangible as connectedness, right? Social connectedness, a social connect, right? So in the world of the real material goods, there are inventory models, right? So you order something, it arrives, your stock goes up, and then you consume it, and then you order again, the stock goes up, and you consume it. And we began to model connectedness like this. It is sort of like a sawtooth mode, right? So when you meet people, your connectedness goes up, and then gradually through your Teams and Zoom meetings, it drops, you lose some of that, and then you meet them again, and it goes up again. How high is the spike? If you meet someone for a few hours, is that enough? Is that a big spike? If you meet someone for 1 or 2 days, it's a much bigger spike. But then, if it's 3 days, 4 days, maybe there is not much marginal increase in that spike. Maybe if you have, rather than a Teams meeting, a more immersive experience, a metaverse kind of experience, maybe you can get a smaller spike than being face-to-face. And how do you keep it above a certain level, right? So I think that the model by itself is just an illustration. But the idea is that you are really thinking all the time about the social physics of the organization. And that's pretty much all I do, right? And in the last 2 years, our company doubled in size. We went from being roughly 8,500 people at the end of 2020 to being over 18,000 people in 2022, while not being in offices, working remotely, and somehow keeping the culture going, somehow keeping the whole system going. So I think that what makes us the fastest growing digital product engineering services company is our focus on the social physics, because the rest we will work out, right? So you can extrapolate this, I think, from an organization like ours to a supply chain, to a factory, to any other setting, a hospital setting. Because if you're only treating the human beings as arms and legs, then I think you're missing something, right? The greatest companies, I think, have gone beyond that to treating people as more than that. Now, the psychology, by the way, of supply chains is an old topic, right? So 60 years ago, the Forrester effect was discovered, like a bullwhip effect in supply chains, right? 60 years ago. And 30 years ago or so, it got the name the bullwhip effect. And for 30 years or so, at least I've seen it being taught in business schools worldwide with something called the beer game, a small simulation where people learn how supply chains work, the psychology works. But still, till today, just a few weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal had a big article on the bullwhip effect, and it's astonishing how little effort has gone in to trying to deal with the psychology of the supply chain while everybody's working on data, et cetera, but as long as the decision-making psychology is not dealt with, you're going to have the same results over and over and over again. I think it's the same when you think of factories, when you think of digital twins and people collaborating on training through these digital twins. I think it's really important that we focus not only on what's happening when the person is involved with that, right? Because that's the user persona mindset, right? Which is, how do you make it more easy to learn for the person? What you're missing is the social story, right? How is the learning from the twin changing the person, changing the person's behaviors? What conversations are they having outside? And I think that sort of holistic idea of what you are doing with the technology is really, really important. So to leave you, I'd like to leave you with this one thought, that I think if we start by imagining what the social physics of our value chain or of our organization are that we want to drive, better still society, better still humanity, but at least to this level, I think the solutions we come up with will be a lot more meaningful. And I think that we can consider this as an extension of user experience and take it to the social physics experience the social physics impact of whatever it is that we are doing. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the show. Thanks.